and welcome to the Business of Data podcast. I'm your host, Catherine King, and it's a pleasure to have you join us today. In this series, we'll be speaking to senior data analytics leaders to share their experiences, challenges, and insights. Let's go ahead and dive straight into today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Business of Data podcast. Now, this week's theme is all about it's not the future, it's now. Specifically, how to accelerate and scale your digital transformation and adapting to new technologies and processes. Now, to chat us through this wonderful topic, I have managed to grab half an hour with the wonderful Gillian Tomlinson, who's the Director of Data and Analytics from 3. Now, if you haven't had the pleasure of meeting Jill previously, just a few intro facts for you so that you can get better acquainted. Jill has worked within the data function of several companies, including RSA, Whitbread and Lloyds. And as I say today, she is the Director of Data Analytics for the telecom company 3. Now, Jill has this week just spoken at our CDAO Europe conference, which for the very first time was fully virtual. So I really enjoyed tuning into her panel session on that one. And if you can't find Jill at her home office desk, you'll most likely find her enjoying time with her toddler, Rafe, or possibly out on a run. Jill, it's lovely to have you. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Catherine, thanks very much, and for a lovely introduction as well.
You are most welcome. Now, it is a pod tradition that I always start with a nosy question, and I know we have such a range of different people who tune in to this podcast, and I know we have a fair amount of parents joining us. Now, I can't imagine lockdown and toddlers mix terribly well, so I'm keen to know, what have you been doing to keep yourself and your son busy during this time?
I think, work's kept me very busy, but I think juggling a toddler probably has a series of pros and cons. So I think from a positive side, spending time with him every day has been absolutely magic, and obviously cutting down the commute time as well. It's been wonderful. My son started talking during the time, which has been amazing. Probably from a con side, the juggling has been a little bit of a challenge, but it actually you do prove to yourself you actually can do remote working, which has been astonishing, and also spend time and quality with your family. I think the one milestone we probably reached is my son. I potty trained him during lockdown, so a bit too much information, but a good milestone in a mum's life, basically.
Yeah, fantastic. I love that. And I think it gives a very real insight to you as a person, not just as a thought leader. Fantastic. Now, Jill, you're also a member of the female lead, I believe. I'd love to know more about the organisation and what you do with them.
Sure. I think the data industry has always been seen very much with an IT lens. And the IT industry globally is very male dominated. It always has been. And being a senior leader in the data industry, it's really important that and for me personally, that I'm able to promote to younger girls and to the younger generation of women, and role model potentially, opportunities for them to actually go after positions and jobs and careers that they wouldn't have thought of traditionally, because it has been very male dominated. So, the female lead is a fantastic organization. It's non-profit. It was set up by a woman called Edwina Dunn. She's a phenomenal entrepreneur and data pioneer, and she basically, her mission is to make women's stories visible and to offer alternative role models, basically, for younger girls out there, as opposed to the traditional marketing type roles, or secretarial type roles it used to be in the past, really, but really to promote the industry itself.
Fantastic. I tell you what, I love my job, it's no secret, but what I absolutely love is speaking to people like you who are so passionate about things that I have been passionate about for a long time, and just hearing about this incredible work. I don't know if you were lucky enough to catch Di Mays from WPP's session at CDO Europe. She did a fantastic bit within her session about diversity and thinking about the language we use in day-to-day life, and actually how that can influence career choices and things like that. I'm thinking postman and things like that, and that actually we're influencing people from a young age to think about gendered roles, and actually we need to be thinking very differently. So I'm so glad it's really coming to the forefront, and people like yourself are really taking a lead on really promoting that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I think probably alongside that, the data geek in me me, we obviously artificial intelligence is one of
Hmm.
the key capabilities that we are globally maturing, and really driving forward. And what we find is that in order to remove bias from artificial intelligence, the best data science team you can have is a diverse one, both culturally, gender-wise, and because obviously, the ability to reprogram an artificial intelligence solution without that bias is absolutely critical
Hmm.
to success of companies in future. So there's a geek side of me where actually there's a really interesting play where we actually really need that diversity, even
Yeah.
with the way in which we're setting up our teams internally, just purely on the products we're actually developing and delivering.
Absolutely. And I think it's a trend that I've seen in content that we've produced, but also things that I've attended as well, that there's almost this evolution from, it's not just diversity to look good and check boxes, but
Oh, yeah.
actually, as you say there, it's about the quality and dealing with inbuilt biases. I mean, the world is biased, so data is going
Yes.
to be, and about dealing with those problems, and actually questions being posed by people who are diverse and are having teams that are diverse, that are provoking questions that perhaps wouldn't have been asked if you have a team that all looks and sounds very similar. So very interesting things
Exactly.
indeed. So let's move on to the main conversation here. The title of this session is "It's Not the Future, It's Now." Now this came about because when we were catching up before this episode, Jill, you shared that fantastic soundbite with me when we were discussing digital transformation. As I said, you said it's not the future, it's now. Why do you think so many companies are still in that mindset that it is in the future or it's further down the line? I think obviously COVID has influenced this a little bit. I think it's further in people's in sense of it's closer, in people's journeys than it was. But why do you think so many companies and organizations aren't really seeing digital as imperative and right now?
I think you're probably right. I think that it has somewhat changed that view in terms of COVID, and I think businesses are definitely seeing it as imperative. I think there's still a gap, and this has fundamentally been the challenge previously, is that it's
Mm,
always been seen as an IT change within an organization,
right.
and it's big building blocks, big technology components that need to be delivered and implemented and take a long time. And while that's happening, the business tend to get slightly disinterested and slightly disengaged, and because they've got a job to do daily. Customer growth, looking after their customers, managing them,
Yeah.
generating revenue. And I think the biggest challenge to digital transformation in the past definitely has been the fact that there's that separation and disengagement between the
Mhm.
business and IT. And I see it. As a data practitioner, because there isn't a company I've joined, and I've worked for a lot of the banks, obviously Whitbread, RSA, every organization out there, to be fair.
Yeah.
There's not a program of work I don't step into where there's not a remediation project, where you have to marry what the data needs to look like for the
Yeah.
business versus what the technology is actually functionally enabled to do. And so I think this year has seen a marked step change. I think that
Mhm.
the fact that companies have no choice but to actually have to sell remotely, to sell online,
Yeah.
to be online, to have an online presence, to work in an automated way, and be able to respond instantaneously to customers. I think that's really accelerated things this year, which is we've seen a marked improvement for that,
Mhm.
and really kind of changed that imperative. There's still obviously the challenges of how you make that happen, and I think really good leaders across the industry and program managers in digital transformation are able to do that. But
Yeah.
I do see a step change this year.
I think that's so interesting what you say there, that leaders just didn't have a choice. It was that choice and luxury was just removed from them because, as you say, when shops are closed and you legally cannot go out and purchase items, that has to move online, or you just have to shut up shop for however long this goes on for. I mean, obviously we're both UK based. I believe you're England based.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
am.
you're in lockdown at the moment. I'm
I
in Wales. I'm just out of lockdown.
am.
So I mean, if you just look at the UK, it's so different. So being digitally is imperative if you want to carry on, which is great. So when it came to your digital transformation and the experiences you've had, often when I have these sorts of conversations, there's normally kind of a spark that means that there was kind of the one challenge or problem that was kind of the real big thing that they wanted to change. Was that the case for you? Was there a particular problem or challenge you were looking to face with your
Um,
digital transformation?
I think overall we've been on our transformation journey for a number of years now. We started relatively early. We had we were blocked by a competition commission with a merger that we had underway, and we'd been working on for a number of years. So we hadn't focused on transformation and digitization up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And when that was blocked and when that fell through, we decided, well, from a telco perspective, the future of 5G, IoT, and
Yeah.
supporting basically smart businesses, smart homes, smart cars, and the economy, and really having a viable proposition that you can absolutely expand and build upon,
Mm-hmm.
means that we had to move our network and our IT stack into the cloud as soon as possible,
Right.
because we need the processing power in the future. You need to be able to actually support all that 5G brings, and I think that that was really the spur for us, in order to be able to move our transformation journey across. Now, we've successfully done that from a network perspective, and we're almost at the closing end of that journey now. But I think, fundamentally top down from a business perspective, the ultimate goal is you've got to compete. You've got
Yeah.
to understand, how you're going to compete in future, and the nature of the industry's competition is going to change because of digitization, because of the way in which the world is moving towards, as I've said, where you've got 5G, you've got the ability, and obviously maybe 6G,
Absolutely.
7G. Things are going to get faster, quicker, and customers are going to become more demanding and more, and there's going to be a lot more price suppression, a lot more competition. So I
Absolutely.
think I think we very much saw that as part of what we needed to do and transform, and that's really been the catalyst for us.
Yeah, and I think it's probably fair to say you're in one of the fastest pacing industries there is, and that isn't going to slow down for you. The phrase that an executive at an event recently said, which is just stuck in my mind there, which is you kind of have to build the aeroplane as you're flying, and that there's not going to be a pause or moment in these transformations that allows you to transform with it, and actually you've just got to keep going.
I think the other thing really is that there's no such thing as an end goal anymore.
Mm,
So you've got to continuously build and develop. So you have to have a culture of proof of concepts and testing and
yeah.
R&D. And that's notoriously not necessarily always been part of the fabric of most companies. But now, with the way in which the world is changing, and especially how the data analytics, landscape shifts and changes,
Hmm.
and we spoke about AI, a little bit earlier as well. You've got to be constantly testing, proving, scaling up, looking for obviously, how you actually make that big next best leap.
Fantastic. Now, were there any specific technologies or data-driven capabilities that have played a really big role in Three's digital transformation currently today?
Yeah, I mean, look, I mentioned the cloud, right? So,
Mm.
we're a Microsoft Azure shop. So, we've truly embraced. We've got a very big partnership with them, because we are part of the CK Hutchison group. So we have a lot of relations with vendors across the
Yeah.
board. And although we use other players in the market as well, as Three UK, we've chosen, really to move everything into the cloud on that basis, and that's been our core, our foundation. From a data analytics perspective, we've chosen several options, and it typically your BI capability, your self-service type of slice and
Yeah.
dice type reporting, visualization capability, your analytical tooling that can be scalable, that can actually support basically integrated analytics in the future, digital front ends, how you actually do, let's say, targeted ads, or how you support campaigns in real time.
Yeah.
So we've invested in Kit to be able to support us on that basis, and really, I think, from our remit perspective, it's been about, do we have the best capability suited to what we want to achieve,
Hmm.
not just today, but literally, as we scale. And then how do we work with those organizations? And this has also been a big part of our mantra, sitting on the innovation boards of our vendors, to be able to actually influence that roadmap, as well as actually work with
Right.
them to be able to
Yeah.
build out basically what we need in future.
Fantastic. Now, I mentioned it earlier, and I'm kind of keen to zone in on your experience for how COVID-19 has really impacted your current strategy and what it's meant for your teams working. I mean, I assume that you're either remote working or at least partly. So, how's that been for you?
It's been fantastic and challenging at the same time because I don't think we've ever been busier.
Mm,
Because as I said to you, that step change was absolutely needed, and you need a data analytics ecosystem that can support, your ability to absolutely run your business remotely overnight.
yeah.
So where we haven't had that, we've had to go and actually really accelerate the change in those spaces very quickly. So and also from an insight perspective, the need to understand pre and post lockdown, where you open stores, how you optimize your stores, how you
Mm-hmm.
optimize propositions, how you really shift the dial has been critical. We have a joint relationship with a company called CK Delta. It's not really a joint relationship. They're a part of our CK Hutchinson Holding Company group, and we worked with them hand in glove to support the City of London to help develop the COVID index. So basically, that shows traffic pre and post lockdown, so you
Right.
can support TfL or the police or
Mm-hmm.
the City of London to be able to understand how to actually manage really the flow of people. So there's been a huge demand of my team, to be fair, from a data analytics perspective, and we've all been remote working.
Yeah.
And also part of that is I've also been hiring a new talent. So
Fantastic.
that's been so some of my leaders I haven't even met in person yet, which has been a really interesting situation. I've never experienced that before, but it just works anyway.
And on that point, are
Yeah.
they more spread out now, or are you still hiring with the thought that you're going back into the office, or has it increased the
I
geographic
think
area?
Yeah, I think to be fair, I mean, to be fair, none of us really know what the future is like. Although the vaccine coming in sounds like a fantastic
Mm,
opportunity for us to get back into a working environment, but I think our minds have completely opened now to the fact that people can work anywhere across the UK and still be able to do a really good job. And I think where there is necessity for us to get together is really when you're doing major planning sessions, for big
mm-hmm.
changes or big projects. I think it's still useful to have everyone in the same room. Although we've been managing that through Zoom calls or Teams or
Mm-hmm.
remotely to date.
Yeah, I think from the plethora of conversations I've had with people in similar roles to yourself is that actually, although remote working can do a lot of things and that it increases many positives, as we said, increasing the talent pool and linking that back to our previous conversation around diversity, you're able to open up the net much wider to people who perhaps wouldn't have been included due to just
Completely.
geographical restrictions. But then on the flip side, as you say, there are just those water cooler moments that you can't have online, those meetings after the meeting takes place, that are more casual, and that actually that a lot of innovation is done in that time. So it's going to be really interesting to see in the next months or further into 2021 how that looks in terms of whether there is sort of a hybrid model for many
Agreed.
companies. And as you
I
said,
think,
right
yeah.
in there. Sorry, go on.
No. Sorry, I was going to say I think that's exactly where our thinking is. It's probably more
Mm,
going to be more hybrid, and interestingly enough, we're doing things that we never thought we would do in the past, where we're organized, to ensure also that your people feel engaged, because that's the other side is looking after people's well-being and really making sure
absolutely.
they're supported, because not everyone has the same home environment, and that and
Absolutely.
also lack of social interaction can have a negative effect as well. So we've been doing pizza sessions, where we have Domino's delivered to our
Yeah.
team, and you do a drink session overnight, and basically remotely. So we've been looking at ways in which we can balance the scales, at least from a social
Hmm.
perspective, to bring that to the fore.
Absolutely. That's fantastic to hear that you've been doing that, because it is such a big problem. I think there was a real influx at the start of lockdown for many, and these things, there was a quiz every other day on Zoom,
Yeah,
whereas now it's kind of people's passion for it is kind of waned a little, but it's really
yeah,
excited to hear that you're still doing that, because it is still so fundamental. And I also think, going right back to your first contribution to this episode about your son having additional family time, I think there's going to be a cultural pushback to being in the office as frequently as it used to be, because it's
yeah,
like, hang on, I quite like having dinner with my family at a normal time and enjoying their company as well. So I think that's
absolutely.
going to be of interest. We have diverged massively. Let's get back on
Absolutely,
track.
absolutely.
So with everything that's going on, with COVID throwing just every spinball possible, how frequently would you say data leaders should be reassessing and updating their digital strategies? As you say, there's no end goal, so you can't ever really say, right, we've done it. So what should they be doing to reassess and update? How frequently?
I think, to be fair, it depends on where they are in their digital journey. But the thing is that from my perspective, in terms of where I see the world, is we have obviously a big transformation program where, like I said to you, switching out bigger pieces of
Mm-hmm.
kit and technology, and that requires probably a less frequent review. So,
Yeah.
quarterly, every 6 months, etc. Whereas obviously on a day-to-day basis, we're working with a business across the board, whether it be to automate reporting or to
Mm-hmm.
deliver a project for some analytics to look at a new proposition, for example. Those type of activities are ongoing on a day-to-day basis. And I
Yeah.
think every new request that comes through from the business needs to be looked at with an innovative lens. So to be fair, I think from my perspective, there's two hats. There's the bigger cadence, and I think at least
Mm.
once per annum you need to do a review of your
Yeah.
strategy from a transformation point of view, and then on a more real time basis, I think it has to be inherent and built into your way of working.
Fantastic. Now I'm so conscious of the time. I want to move on to our last section of the conversation that I had earmarked us to have. And that's all about the future of kind of data value. Now, as you said previously, 3 now belongs to the multinational conglomerate CK Hutchinson Group. Now, I believe you have been working to monetize the group's data as well. I'd love to know more about what that entails.
Yeah, so my remit is very much focused on 3 UK, but we work with, like I said to you, a company called one of our holding companies called CK Delta.
Mm-hmm.
And so really what it is that we're incredibly mindful of anonymized customer information being absolutely critical, and the compliance requirements around GDPR. So really protecting our customers' data. But the information we sit on, specifically from a network perspective, is incredibly valuable. So location information, for example. So I mentioned the COVID index and how
Yeah.
we built the insight out. So our ability to understand, let's say, people's movements, and provide that in an anonymized way
Mm-hmm.
to the City of London is invaluable insight. So it's got a real monetary value attached to it. It's got a real value attached to it from a ethical, commercial perspective. And those are the type of projects that we work on. So and we work so we're more of a service arm to CK Delta Holding Company, who really drive the product development and the sales function. But I think that's probably one example. We've worked on an ad fraud product
Mm-hmm.
for ad and media agencies, and more recently, we have also looked at a proof of concept that we've been working with around flying taxis, which is a bit of a crazy
Wow.
theory, but
Okay.
actually, yeah, those things are happening at the moment. I mean, most of the telcos do this, and a lot of them, some of them are better than we are
Mm.
in this space. To be fair, we focus very much on our opcos across the board, but also then how we expand that out. So building the products for our opcos, and then looking at how we then, provide that value to other organizations. And I think, that for us, especially from a data analytics perspective, as a practitioner, that's the exciting stuff. That really is the exciting
Absolutely.
space. And it is the space of the future, because in the IoT world in future, and once you actually get that real processing power that 5G, and obviously as we kind of really accelerate 6G, 7G,
Mm-hmm.
will bring, every device out there is a device that speaks from a data perspective to each other. And the opportunities to be able to, for companies who have traditionally, let's say, had one type of product that they sold in the market, to
Yeah.
expand that is huge. So I think from our perspective, it's a very exciting space.
Absolutely. And do you think, just kind of adding on to that one before we wrap up, do you think that people would be shocked to hear some of these projects? I mean, they just sound so futuristic. I mean, flying taxis, come on, that's so exciting. Do you think the wider public, who aren't perhaps as aware to the data capabilities that you guys have, would be shocked by that?
It's been in the news. So there's a. Do you know what I think if you're keeping up with innovations and
Mm.
what's happening on that side, I think you probably would be in the know of some of these
Yeah.
activities happening. Everyone knows about smart cars. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So, so you can imagine if we're already we've been working on smart cards for a number of years, that a lot of companies must be working on the next step, the next best thing, the next
Mm,
best thing. So, you know, I think it's you know, it's very much a here and now.
yeah.
I think a lot of organizations, specifically the bigger organizations, medium to large organizations, a lot more of the focus is very much on the foundations, and especially this year. So innovation might not be at the forefront of mind. However, for a lot of the entrepreneurial organizations and SMEs, and you know, the organizations that really have R&D as at the heart of their
Hmm.
proposition, you know, that's where their focus really is. So I think you know, probably this year's been a somewhat of a distraction in that space.
Yeah.
But I think you know, the futures, it's pretty much where we're getting closer and closer and closer and closer to what we thought was really 20 years or 10 years down the line.
Yeah. How exciting. Fantastic. Now, the time is dripping away here very, very quickly. So my last question to you, Jill, I always like to put these, I'm often told these are the hardest questions, and I like to put them last, which is, if you could go back 5 years and give yourself one piece of advice, whether professionally or personally, what would it be?
Um, I probably would have bought a home earlier. So I've just taken advantage, obviously, of the you know, the housing market, the stamp duty holiday at the moment, and I've
Mhm.
just purchased a home. But I probably would have done it a lot sooner, I think, if you look at the values and how they've increased. So,
Yeah.
and that's just from a personal perspective. To be fair, there's probably a lot more of advice. You know, I'm there's no point in time in my career or even my personal life I don't think I'm growing or learning.
Mhm.
So, you know, that I just accept that, to be fair. So there's probably a lot of things I would have done differently with hindsight, you
Mm.
know, but nothing regretful. But I think the one thing would be, yes, I would have bought a house sooner.
Well, congratulations on
Thank you.
your
Thanks.
new home. And to be fair, I think that's a fantastic piece of advice, is that you are always, we're each growing and learning, and actually that is okay. That can be the piece of advice
Yes,
really to take
definitely.
from that it's okay to develop, and you know, perfection is not always something that can be achieved, and it should just be a goal.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, Jill, as always, it is a pleasure to chat with you. So thank you so much for giving me some of your time today.
Catherine, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Catch you soon.
Cheers. Bye.
What a brilliant conversation. What I absolutely loved about that chat was the various themes that Jill brought up, and actually that there's so many exciting things right in the here and now, and it's not about 5 years or 10 years down the line. We're talking within the next few months, if not a little bit further afield in perhaps 2021. For me, I absolutely loved hearing about the flying taxis. What a great way to monetize data that otherwise would just be sat there. And I think for anyone listening who is perhaps a little bit behind on their digital transformation journey, Jill gives a tremendous amount of hope as to what can be achieved if you get your culture and your organization equipped and ready to deal with that said transformation. As always, make sure you are subscribed to the Business of Data platform to be first in line for our thought-leading content and insights. And if you haven't done already, make sure you are following us on socials, the Business of Data by Corinium, and you will be able to comment, chat, and share all of that content with fellow thought leaders. For now, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you real soon.